Hey, just waiting for the Artsy Nurse. Hey, Michelle. I'm just waiting on Artsy. My son and my nephew are in the back. Well, sorry, my son is here. My nephew is on the phone. They're playing something on PS4. So who knows? I don't know. You'll probably hear them. Oh, no worries, Artsy. Hey, Queen of Sheba. Oh, really? I mean, that's awesome, Michelle, but I understand like the panic. My son wants to join the army as well. I think it's a very righteous thing to do. I think it's amazing, but there's a but because like I don't want to let him go, sort of thing. Hey, Nancy. Yeah, he'll be okay. We got to let them go, you know? Such a noble thing to do. But we're moms, we worry, right? I had to go shopping 2 days in a row. So I went yesterday to pick up things and I forgot something. I forgot cat litter. So I went today and I got my cat litter and then I forgot garbage bag tags. Oh my God. So now I have to go again tomorrow to go get garbage bag tags. So I'm like, okay, I might as well just go to the grocery store because I want to get that's the only place here that sells pickled turnips and I'm obsessed. I got my sister Melissa obsessed with them. I told her, I'm like, trust me, they're amazing. Because we had them before on shawarma wraps and donaires. And we were always wondering, where are these freaking pink things? So we finally figured out they were pickled turnips. So now it's just like I found a jar of them at the grocery store. I told her, I'm like, she was with me. I'm like, hey, trust me, buy one. You'll love them. Oh my God, we eat like a jar within a week. It's bad. You gotta go shopping. Yeah, I need to make a list. Definitely. That's the thing. I didn't make one yesterday. I made one today and I still forgot. It's ridiculous. Make sure he picks a good job field that will transfer to the civilian market later on in his life. Yeah, see, I don't know anything about that at all. So I don't know. I have to get my son to talk to you, Queen Shiva. Really? Pickled okra. Hmm.
Hello.
Hey, sorry. It popped up. I didn't hear the pop up. It usually go. I didn't even hear it. He wants to be a computer tech guy. Awesome. Thai chili pickles. Oh, I'm getting hungry. I made my mom and my uncle and my aunt, my son and my nephew try this pickled turnips. I don't know. I just think they're like the bee's knees. Nobody likes them but me and my sister Melissa. So I guess that's a good thing considering we eat like a jar a week. That's a good field. Let them spend money on that. Yeah. That's what your son did too? See, I think my nephew should be a computer tech guy. Walmart sells them. Oh, I'm gonna have to go. Well, I went and got pickled beets. Why? I don't know. I know I don't like them, but I wanted to give them a second try, seeing how I love pickled turnips. No, I don't like them. They're too mushy and like sugary or something. Think we'll get to the party your mom in here, Artsy, this time?
I think so. I
That'd
was
be good.
looking ahead and she was in a little bit. And then
Yeah.
there's just kind of a little like bigger section, like not really a big section, but they talk about her a little bit further on, just briefly.
Yeah. That would be good. Let me get it. Oh my god, my stomach's growling. Oh, I should eat. Oh well. All right, I'm gonna start reading.
What page were you on?
I am on page 222.
Okay, that's not the same as mine.
This one is December 2nd, 1969. It's titled
Oh, okay.
Have a Can of SpaghettiOs. Oh, I'm not really into that. Yuck.
So yeah, you're about a page and a half, I think. From my yeah, we'll get to it.
All right.
We'll get to it real quick, actually.
Just interrupt me when you want to talk. Just yell at me and I'll shut up. All right. LAPD called a few minutes after I arrived at the office. All 5 suspects were now in custody. Linda Kasabian just having voluntarily surrendered to Concord, New Hampshire. According to her mother, Linda had admitted to being present at the Tate residence but claimed she had not participated in the murders. It looked as if she wasn't going to fight extradition. How do you say that? I know how to say it in my head, but not out loud.
Extradition?
Extradition? Yeah, something like that.
I've heard of both. Extradite.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if it's extradition then.
I've always just said extradition.
Yeah, okay.
I could have been saying it wrong this whole time. Who knows?
Yeah, probably me too. A somewhat different decision had been reached in Texas. McKinney was less than 30 miles north of Dallas and only a few miles from Farmersville, where Charles Watson had grown up and gone to school. Audie Murphy had been a Farmersville boy. Now they had another local celebrity. The news had already broken by the time Sartucci and Nelson reached McKinney. Stories in the Texas papers describe Watson as having been an A student in high school, a football, basketball, and track star who still had held the state record for the low hurdles.
Good job on pronouncing the Sartucci.
I know. I didn't even have.
I was impressed.
That's weird.
I was like, oh, got it.
Yeah, I can do that one, but not the other ones. The other ones I see are like a freaking tongue twister or something. Yeah, Sartucci. I don't know. It looks self-explanatory, this one, but the other ones, I don't know. All right. Most local residents expressed shocked disbelief. Charles was the boy next door, one said. It was drugs that did it, an uncle told reporters. He started taking them at college, and that was where the trouble started. The principal of Farmersville High was quoted as saying, "It almost makes you afraid to send your kids off to college anymore." On the instruction of Watson's attorney, Bill Boyd, the Los Angeles detectives were not allowed to speak to his client. Sheriff Montgomery wouldn't even permit them to fingerprint him. Sartucci and Nelson did see Watson, however, accidentally. While they were talking to the sheriff, Watson passed them on the stairs, on his way to the visitor's room. According to their report, he was well-dressed, clean-shaven, with short, not long, hair. He appeared in good health and looked like a clean-cut college boy. Marlon McKinney, the detectives, established that Watson had gone to California in 1967, and then he hadn't moved back until November 1969, long after the murders. Sartucci and Nelson returned to Los Angeles convinced we'd have little cooperation from the local authorities. It wasn't only a matter of relatives. Somehow, the whole affair had become involved in the state politics. Little cooperation would be a gross exaggeration. Reporters were busy tracing the wanderings of the nomadic family and interviewing those members not in custody. I asked Gail to save the papers, knowing the interviews might be useful at a later date. Though still uncharged with the murders, Charles Manson had now taken center stage. Sandy, the first time I heard him sing it, was like an angel. Squeaky, he gave off a lot of magic, but he was sort of changeling. He seemed to change every time I saw him. He seemed ageless. There were also interviews and acquaintances and relatives of the suspects. Joseph Krenwinkel recalled how in September 1967, his daughter Patricia left her Manhattan Beach apartment, her job, and her car, not even picking up a paycheck due her to join Manson. I'm convinced he was some kind of hypnosis. Krenwinkel was not the only one to make that suggestion. Attorney Cabarello, talked to reporters outside the Santa Monica courtroom where his client had just entered a not guilty plea to the Hinman murder. Susan Atkins was under the hypnotic spell of Manson, Cabarello said, and had nothing to do with the murders, despite her presence at the Hinman and Tate residences. Cabarello also told the press his client was going to go before the grand jury and tell the complete story. This was the first confirmation we had that Susan Atkins had agreed to cooperate. That same day, LAPD interviewed Barbara Hoyt, whose parents had persuaded her to contact the police. Barbara had lived with the family off and on since April '69 and had been with them at Spawn, Myers, and Barker ranches. The pretty 17-year-old story came out in bits and pieces over several interviews among her disclosures. One evening while at Spawn, about a week after the August 16th raid, she had heard screams that seemed to come from down the creek. They lasted a long time, 5 to 10 minutes, and she was sure they were Shorty's. After that night, she never saw Shorty again. Hey, Brittany. The next day, she heard Manson tell Danny DiCarlo that Shorty had committed suicide, with a little help from us. Manson had also asked DiCarlo if Lime would dispose of a body. While at Myers Ranch in early September 1969, Barbara had overheard Manson tell someone, she wasn't sure who, that it had been real hard killing Shorty. Once he had been brought to now, they'd hit him over the head with a pipe, Manson said. Then everyone stabbed him, and finally, Clem had chopped his head off after they'd cut him up in 9 pieces. Hey, Dana. Oh, you made it, Dana, finally. She's always missing my lives and stuff. While still at Myers, Barbara had also overheard Sadie tell, I don't know how to say that word either. It's it's like a German type name or something. Ouisch.
I used to know it.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
My mom would say, yeah, I'll find out. I'll tell you.
It's like Osage. I don't know. About the murders of Abigail Folger and Sharon Tate. Sometime later, he told Barbara that she knew of 10 other people the group had murdered. Not long after this, Barbara and another girl, Sherry Ann Cooper, a.k.a. Simi Valley Sherry, fled the family's Death Valley hideout. Manson caught up with them in Ballarat, but because other people were present, had let them go, even giving them $20 for their bus fare to Los Angeles. We later received information indicating that Manson may have sent 3 of his followers to Los Angeles with instructions to either bring back the girls or kill them, but we never were able to prove this. This was the same trip when a flat tire prevented the murder of Kathy Giles' grandmother, the owner of Myers Ranch. Although very frightened, Barbara agreed to cooperate with us. That cooperation would nearly cost her life.
All right.
About this, what, sorry?
Oh, I will say that is my mother.
Yep. I was gonna say, I was wondering if you were just saying something.
Yeah, my mother's Barbara Hoyt.
Yep. So there you go, guys. She's telling you. Barbara Hoyt is Artsy's mama. That's scary, though. Barbara agreed to cooperate with us. That cooperation would nearly cost her life. That is intense. Ugh, wow. Okay. About this same time, another of the Manson girls agreed to help the police. She was the last person from whom I expected cooperation. Mary Brunner, the first member of the Manson family. Is it Brunner or Brunner? Brunner. Following his release from prison in March '67, Charles Manson had gone to San Francisco. A prison acquaintance found him a room across the bay in Berkeley. In no hurry to find a job, subsisting mostly by panhandling, Manson would wander Telegraph Avenue or sit on the steps of the Sather Gate entrance to the University of California. Playing his guitar, then one day along came this librarian. As Charlie related the story to Danny DiCarlo, she was out walking her dog. High button blouse, nose stuck up in the air, walking her little poodle. And Charlie's fresh out of the joint, and along he comes talking his bullshit. Mary Brunner, then 23, had a BA degree in history from the University of Wisconsin and was working as an assistant librarian at the University of California. She was singularly unattractive, and Manson apparently was one of the first persons who thought her worth cultivating. It was impossible, he recalled these days, when he lived off fat flow. So one thing led to another, DiCarlo resumed. He moved in with her, then came across this other girl. No, there will be no other girls moving in with me, Mary says. She flatly refused to consider the idea. After the girl had moved in, 2 more came on, and Mary says, I'll accept one other girl, but never 3. 4, 5, all the way up to 18. This was in Frisco. Mary was the first. The family had been born. Michelle says, oh my, Barbara was your mom. That is awesome. Brittany's like, I knew it. She
I
probably
believe
did.
you. I
I believe her too. She knows a lot about this. Yeah, I completely believe Brittany. Yep. By this time, Manson had discovered the hate,
Hate.
Alrighty. According to a tale, Manson himself often told his followers, one day a young boy handed him a flower. It blew my mind, he recalled. Questioning the youth, he learned that in San Francisco there was free food, music, dope, and love just for the taking. Did you want something?
Yeah, I'm going to my aunt's because right now she's picked me up.
Oh, is she? Okay. Here, give me a hug. Sorry, guys. Just a minute. Oh, I love you. Have fun. Let me know how your lesson goes, okay? The boy took him to hate Ashbury, Manson later told Stephen Alexander, a writer for the underground paper Tuesday's Child. And we slept in the park and we lived on the streets, and my hair got a little longer, and I started playing music, and people liked my music, and people smiled at me and put their arms around me and hugged me. I didn't know how to act. It just took me away. They grabbed me up. Man, there were people that are real. They were also young, naive, eager to believe, and perhaps even more important, belong. There were followers aplenty for any self-styled guru. It didn't take Manson long to sense this. In the underground, I don't even know how to say that, Milieu, Milieu. I have to start looking up these words. Onto which he stumbled. Even the fact that he was an ex-convict conferred a certain status. Wrapping a line, a metaphysical con that borrowed as much from pimping as joint jargon and Scientology, Manson began attracting followers, almost all the girls at first, then a few boys. There are a lot of Charlies running around, believe me, observed Roger Smith, Manson's parole officer during his San Francisco period. But with one big difference, somewhere along the line, I wasn't yet sure how or where or when Manson developed a control over his followers, so as encompassing that he could ask them to violate the ultimate taboo. Say kill and they would do it. Brittany says, my friend did the Manson murders for her psychology paper in college. I helped a little bit. Hey, Screaming to Ether. I still gotta watch your video. Many automatically assumed the answer was drugs. Dr. David Smith, who got to know the group through his work in Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, felt sex, not drugs, was the common denominator in the Manson family. A new girl in Charlie's family would bring with her a certain middle-class morality. The first thing Charlie did was to see that all this was worn down. That way he was able to eliminate the controls that normally govern our lives. Sex, drugs, they were certainly part of the answer, and I'd soon learn a great deal more about how Manson used both. But they were only part. There was something more, a lot more. She had some, Brittany says, she had some quotes from Artsy's mom in the paper. Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. Manson himself de-emphasized the importance of drugs, at least as far as he was concerned. During this period, he took his first LSD trip. He later said that it enlightened my awareness, but added, being in jail for so long had already left my awareness pretty well open, aware Charlie was. Manson claimed he foresaw the decline of the hate even before it came into full flower. Saw police harassment, bad trips, heavy vibes, people ripping off one another and ODing in the streets. During the famous Summer of Love, with free rock concert and Owsley's acid and 100 more young people arriving each day, he got an old school bus, loaded up his followers, and split. Hey, Lola. Sorry. And 100 more young people arriving every day. He got an old school bus, loaded up his followers, and split, looking for a place to get away from the man. Mary Brenner eventually left her job and joined Manson's Wandering Caravan. She had a child by him, Michael Manson, the whole family participating in the delivery. Manson himself biting through the umbilical cord. That is disgusting. Wow. Wouldn't that be terrifying, having a baby with all of them there? Ugh, especially if you knew what they were like. Ugh. Interviewed in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I hope I pronounced that right. Where she had gone following her release from jail, Mary Brenner agreed to cooperate with the police in return for immunity in the Hinman murder. She supplied numerous details regarding that crime. She also said that in the latter part of September 1969, Tex Watson had told her about the murder of Shorty. They buried his body near the railroad tracks at Spawn, Tex said, and Gypsy abandoned his car in Canoga Park near residence the family had previously occupied on Gresham Street. On the basis of this information, LASO began a search for both the body and the vehicle. Obviously, Mary Brenner would be an important witness in both the Hinman and Shia cases. Though she had been in jail when the Tate and LaBianca murders occurred, Fort Tama even considered using her as a witness in that case, since she could testify to the beginnings of the family. But I remained very leery of her. According to others I interviewed, her devotion to Manson was fanatical. I just couldn't visualize her testifying against the father of her child. Oh, that sucks. The Tate case had been big news abroad since the murders occurred, eclipsing even the incident at, I am not trying to even say that word. It's like Chappaquiddick.
Say what?
It's like Chappaquiddick. I don't know. Something, whatever.
I have no idea where you're at anymore. Like I get distracted and then I I was like, oh, there she is. Watch it for like a paragraph and then I get distracted.
It's like Chappaquiddick. The arrest commanded just as much attention. Because of the time difference, it was nearly midnight of December 1st before reports of the hippie kill cult reached London. As in the United States, the sensational dispatches dominated the headlines of the papers the next day. Let off radio and TV broadcasts. At 11 that morning, a maid in the Telgarth Hotel on Telgarth Road in London tried to open the door of a room occupied by an American youth named Joel Joel. It was locked from the inside. Shortly after 6 p.m., the hotel manager unlocked the door with a pass key. It only opened about 1 foot, he stated. There seemed to be a weight behind it. Kneeling down and reaching in, I felt what seemed like an arm. He hastily called the police. A constable from Hammersmith Station arrived minutes later and pushed the door open. Behind it was the body of Joel. He was lying on his back, unclothed, except for a sheet over his lower half of his body. His throat had been slit twice. There was a bruise on his forehead, slash marks on both wrists, and 2 bloody razor blades, one less than 2 feet from the body. There were no notes, although there were some writings, in reverse on the mirror, along with some comic book type drawings. According to the manager, he had checked into the room on October 27th with a young lady who had left after 3 weeks, a hippie in appearance. He was quiet, went out rarely, seemed to have no friends. There being no wound not incapable of being self-inflicted, the coroner's inquest concluded that he had took his own life while the balance of his mind was disturbed. The little circumstances of the death, including the wounds themselves, were equally, if not more consistent with a murder. It was considered a routine suicide. No one thought the drawings or writings important enough to take down. The manager later recalled only the words Jack and Jill. No attempt was made to determine the time of the death, nor though his room was on the ground floor and could be entered and left through the window. Did anyone feel it necessary to check for latent prints? At the time, no one connected the death with the big American news that day. If it hadn't been for a brief reference in a letter over a month later, we probably would have remained unaware that Joel Dean, at age 29, former Manson family member and husband of family member Sandra Good, had joined the lengthening list of mysterious deaths connected with the case. When she and Squeaky moved out of their hotel room in Independence, Sandy left some papers behind. Among them was a letter from an unidentified former family member, which contained the line, "I would not want what happened to Joel to happen to me." Close enough. Dana wants to know if you're from Cali.
I haven't lived in California since I was 3, so I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Family is. But I'm not.
Chappaquiddick. Thanks, Nancy. I'm going to screw it up anyways, but yeah. So that was the name I was trying to say, but it was like a lot more longer than that. So it was like, Chappaquiddick. Because there's a D after the D in the quid. It was weird. All right. This December 3rd, 1969. About 8 that night, Richard Caballero, wow, now I'm getting tongue-tied, brought the Susan Atkins tape to LAPD. He requested that no copy be made. However, I was allowed to take notes. In addition to myself, both Lieutenants Helder and LePage and 4 or 5 detectives were present while the tape was being played. We said little as, with all the casualness of a child reciting what she did the day in school. Susan Atkins matter-of-factly described the slaughter of 7 people. The voice was that of a young girl, but except for occasional giggles, and Sharon went through quite a few changes, it was flat, emotionless, dead. It was as if all the human feelings had been erased. What kind of creature is this, I wondered. I'd soon know. Cabarello had agreed that before we took the case to the grand jury, I could personally interview Susan Atkins. The tape lasted about 2 hours, although the monumental job of proving their guilt remained. When the tape had ended, Cabarello was saying to Susan, "Okay, now we're going to get you something to eat, including some ice cream." We at least knew for the first time exactly who had been involved in the Tate and LaBianca murders. Though Manson had sent the killers to 10050 Cielo Drive, he had not gone along himself. Those who did go were Charles Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Carmichael, and Linda Kasabian. 1 man, 3 girls, who would mercilessly shoot and stab 5 people to death. Manson, however, did enter the Waverly Drive residence the next night to tie up Rosemary and Lino LaBianca. He then sent in Watson, Carmichael, and Leslie Van Houten. How do you say that last name again?
Houghton?
Houghton? Okay. AKA Sangston, with instructions to kill them. Susan Atkins herself hadn't been inside the LaBianca residence. She had remained in the car with Clem and Linda, but she had heard from Manson, Carmichael, and Van Houten what occurred inside. Though the tape cleared up some mysteries, many remained, and though there were discrepancies, for example, although Susan admitted stabbing the big man, Frykowski, for 5 or 6 times in self-defense, she said nothing about stabbing Sharon Tate. In contrast to what she had told Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard, Susan now claimed that she had held Sharon while Tex stabbed her. Returning to my office, I did what I do after every interview, converted my notes into tentative interrogation. I had a lot of questions I wanted to ask Sadie Mae Glutz. Hey, support your troops. Hey, Juju. Yeah, we're reading Helter Skelter. Nikki, check your DM. Okay. I don't have a DM that I can see anyways. Linda Kasabian waived extradition proceedings and was flown back to Los Angeles that same day. She was booked into civil brand at 11:15 p.m. Aaron was there, as was Linda's attorney, Gary Fleischman. Though he had permitted her to ID some photographs of various family members, which Aaron had, he would not let Aaron question her. Aaron did ask her how she felt, and she replied, tired but relieved. Aaron got the impression that Linda herself was anxious to tell what she knew, but that he was holding out for a deal. My Twitter DM? Okay. Just 1 second, guys. Thank you. You might have to send them to me again. Damn. Oh, that's great. Oh, grads are awesome. All right, December 4th, 1969. Confidential memorandum to Eval J. Younger, District Attorney, from Aaron H. Stovitz, Head Trials Division. Subject is Susan Atkins. A meeting was held today in Mr. Younger's office, commencing at 10:20 a.m. and concluding at 11 a.m. Present at the meeting were Mr. Younger, Paul Caruso, Richard Calabaro, Aaron Stovitz, and Vincent. Don't butcher it, Nikki. Bugliosi.
There you go.
Got it.
I
Discussion.
was just going to say it, but then I was going to let you struggle too because I'm nice like that. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, because sometimes they're really hard, but then there are ones that should be hard aren't. It's weird with me.
No, we got a lot of strange names in this case.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's pretty good, Juju. I actually really, really enjoyed this book. It's the reminder about the interviews from 16 Minutes in ABC. I'm just trying to remember where you sent it to me, Brittany. I thought I think you sent it to me on a different Twitter. Oh, you're so cute, Dana. All right. Where are we? Discussion was had as to whether or not immunity should be given to Susan Atkins in exchange for her testimony at the grand jury hearing and subsequent trial. It was decided that she would not be given immunity. Mr. Cabarello made it known that at this moment his client may not testify at the trial due to her fear of the physical presence of Charles Manson and the other participants in the Sharon Tate murders. Discussion was held concerning the value of Susan Atkins' testimony. Agreement was reached upon the following points: that Susan Atkins' information had been vital to law enforcement. 2. In view of her past cooperation and in event that she testifies truthfully at the grand jury, the prosecution will not seek the death penalty against her in any of these 3 cases that are now known to the to the police, namely the Hinman murder, the Sharon Tate murders, and the La Bianca murders. 3. The extent to which the district attorney's office will assist defense counsel in an attempt to seek less than a first-degree murder. Life sentence will depend upon the extent to which Susan Atkins continues to cooperate. And number 4, that in the event that Susan Atkins does not testify at the trial or that the prosecution does not use her as a witness at the trial, the prosecution will not use her testimony given at the grand jury against her. Gotta go to the phone. I think that's so funny. Everybody talking about this to a phone booth. Cabarello had made an excellent deal as far as his client was concerned. If she testified truthfully before the grand jury, we could not seek the death penalty against her in the Hinman, Tate, and La Bianca cases, nor could we use her grand jury testimony against her or any of her co-defendants when they were brought to trial. As Cabarello later put it, she gave up nothing and got everything in return. For our part, I felt we got very much the short end. Susan Atkins would tell her story at the grand jury. We'd get an indictment, and that would be all we would have, a scrap of paper. For Cabarello was convinced she would never testify at the trial. He was worried that even now she might suddenly change her mind. We had no choice but to rush the case to the grand jury, which was meeting the following day. How did I just leave off? Our case was getting a little stronger. The previous day, Sergeant Sam McClarty of the Mobile Police Department had taken Patricia Chronicles prints. On receiving the exemplar from Mobile, Sergeant Frank Mars of LAPD made one print. The print of the little finger on Chronicles' left hand matched a latent print Officer Bowen had lifted from the frame on the left French door inside Sharon Tate's bedroom. This was the blood-splattered door that led outside to the pool. We now had a second piece of physical evidence linking still another of the suspects to the crime scene. But we didn't have either suspect. Like Watson, Krenwinkel intended to fight extradition. She would be held 14 days without bond. If extradition papers were not there before the 15th day, she would be released. Cabarello drove me to his office in Beverly Hills. By the time we arrived, about 5:30 p.m., Susan Atkins was already there. Having been taken out of Silverbrand on the basis of another court order requested by Aaron, Cabarello had suggested that Susan would be much more apt to speak freely with me in the relaxed atmosphere of his office than at Silverbrand, and Miller Levy, Aaron, and I had agreed. Although she had opened up to both Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard, my interview with Susan Atkins on the Tate La Bianca murders was at first she had with any law enforcement officer. I would also be the last. 21 years old, 5'5", 120 pounds, long brown hair, brown eyes, a not unattractive face, but with a distant, far-off look, similar to the expressions of Sandy and Squeaky, but even more pronounced. Although this was the first time I had seen Susan Atkins, I already knew quite a bit about her. Born in San Gabriel, California, she had grown up in San Jose. Her mother had died of cancer while Susan was still in her teens, and after numerous quarrels with her father, she dropped out of high school and drifted to San Francisco. Hustler, topless, dancer, kept woman, gun mole, she'd been all these things even before meeting Charles Manson. I had a certain amount of pity for her. I tried my best to understand her, but I couldn't summon up very much passion, not after seeing the photographs of what had been done to the Tate victims. After Cabarello introduced us, I informed her of the constitutional rights and obtained permission to interview her. A male and female deputy sheriff sat just outside the open door of the Cabarello's office, watching Susan's every move. Cabarello remained for most of the interview, leaving only to take a few phone calls. I had Susan tell me the whole story, from the time that she first met Manson in Haight-Ashbury in 1967 to the present. Periodically, I'd halt her narrative to ask questions. Were you, Tex, or any of the others under the influence of LSD or any other drug on the night of the Tate murders? No. What about the next night and the night the LaBiancas were killed? No, neither night. There was something mysterious about her. She would talk rapidly for a few minutes, then pause, head slightly cocked to the side as if sensing voices no one else could. You know, she confided, Charlie is looking at us right now, and he can hear everything we are saying. Charlie is up in Independence, Sadie. She smiled, secure in her knowledge that she was right, and I, an outsider, an unbeliever, was wrong. Looking at her, I thought to myself, this is the star witness of the prosecution. Am I going to build my case upon the testimony of this very, very strange girl? She was crazy. I had no doubt about it. Probably not legally insane, but crazy nonetheless. As on tape, she admitted stabbing Frykowski, but denied stabbing Sharon Tate. I'd conducted hundreds of interviews. You get a sort of visual reaction when someone is lying. I felt that she had stabbed Sharon, but didn't want to admit it to me. I was going to read some of these comments. Hey, Teresa. Hey, Nancy. You're listening while you eat? Okay. I had to interview over a dozen witnesses that same night. Winifred Chapman, the first police officer to arrive at Cielo and Waverly, Granado, and the fingerprint men, Lomax from High Standard, Coroner Noguchi, and Deputy Medical Examiner, I'm not sure how to explain that one, or say that one, DeCarlo, Melcher, Jacobson. Each presented special problems. Winifred Chapman was petulant. She wouldn't testify to see any bodies or any blood, or Coroner Noguchi was a rambler. He had to be carefully prepared so he would stick to the subject. Danny DeCarlo had been being believable in the Buscellati trial. I had to make sure the grand jury believed him. It was necessary not only to extract him from the desperate witnesses, many of the experts in their individual fields, exactly what was relevant, but to bring these pieces together into a solid, convincing case. 7 murder victims, multiple defendants. A case like this was not only probably unprecedented, it was required with weeks of preparation because of Chief Davis's rush to break the news. We had only days. It was 2 a.m. before I finished. I still had to convert my notes to interrogation. It was 3:30 before I finished. I was up at 6 a.m. In 3 hours. We had to take the Tate and LaBianca cases for the Los Angeles County Grand Jury. Susan had a baby 9 months earlier. December 5th, 1969. Story, no comment. Although grand jury proceedings are by law secret, neither the DA's office, the witnesses, nor the jurors being allowed to discuss the evidence, this didn't keep the reporters from trying. There must have been 100 newsmen in the narrow hallway of the grand jury chambers. Some were atop tables, so it looked as if they were stacked to the ceiling. In Los Angeles, the grand jury consists of 23 persons, picked up by lot from a list of names submitted by each superior court judge. Of that number, 21 were present, 2/3 of whom would have to concur to return an indictment. The proceedings themselves are usually brief. The prosecution presents just enough of its case to get an indictment and no more. Though in this instance, the testimony would extend over 2 days. The star witness for the prosecution would tell her story in less than one. Attorney Richard Cabarello was the first witness, testifying that he had informed his client of her rights. Cabarello led and left the chambers. Not only are witnesses not allowed to have their attorneys present, each witness testifies outside the hearing of the other witnesses. The sergeant at arms, Susan Atkins. The jurors, 7 men and 14 women, looked at her with obvious curiosity. Erin informed Susan of her rights, among which was her right not to incriminate herself. She waived them. I then took over the questioning, establishing that she knew Charles Manson and taking her back to the day they first met. It was over 2 years ago. She was living in a house on Lion Street in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco with a number of other young people, most of whom were into drugs. And I was sitting in the living room, and a man walked in. Psst, it's all right, buddy. He'll be back. Jack. Shh. I was sitting in the living room, and a man walked in. He had a guitar with him. All of a sudden, he was surrounded by a group of girls. The man sat down and began to play, and the song that caught my attention most was The Shadow of Your Smile, and he sounded like an angel. You are referring to Charles Manson? Yes. And when he was through singing, I wanted to get some attention from him, and I asked him if I could play his guitar. And he handed me the guitar, and I thought, I can't play this. And then he looked at me and said, you can play that if you want to. Now he had never heard me say, I can't play this. I only thought it. So when he told me I could play it, it blew my mind because he was inside my head. And I knew at that time that he was something that I'd been looking for. And I went down and kissed his feet. Ugh. A day or two later, Manson returned to the house and asked her to go for a walk. And we walked a couple blocks to another house, and he told me he wanted to make love with me. Well, I acknowledged the fact that I wanted to make love with him, and he told me to take off my clothes. So I took off my clothes, and there happened to be a full-length mirror in the room, and he told me to go over and look at myself in the mirror. I didn't want to do it, so he took me by my hand and stood me in front of the mirror, and I turned away and said, "Go ahead and look at yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You always have been perfect." What happened next? He asked me if I had ever made love with my father. I looked at him and kind of giggled and I said no. And he said, "Have you ever thought about making love with your father?" I said yes. And he told me, "All right, when you were making love, picture in your mind that I am your father." And I did. I did so, and it was a very beautiful experience. What? This is screwed up. Susan said that before she met Manson, she felt she was lacking something, but then I gave myself to him, and in return for that, he gave me back to myself. He gave me the faith in myself to be able to know that I am a woman. A week or so later, she, Manson, Mary Brunner, Ella Jo Bailey, Lynette Fromm, and Patricia Carmichael, together with 3 or 4 boys whose names she couldn't remember, left San Francisco in an old school bus from which they had removed most of the seats, furnishing it with brightly colored rugs and pillows. For the next year and a half, they roamed north Oregon, Washington, south to Big Sur, Los Angeles, Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and eventually back to LA, living first in various residences in Topeka Canyon, Malibu, Venice, and then finally Spawn Ranch. En route, others joined them, a few staying permanently, most only temporarily. According to Susan, they went through changes and learned to love. The girls made love with each of the boys and with each other, but Charlie was complete love. Although he did not have sex with her often, only 6 times in the more than 2 years they were together, he would give himself completely. I'm just going to check these. That's your bucket list? Go. Yeah, that was pretty gross. And ew. And even more ew. Right? Were you very much in love with him, Susan? I was in love with the reflection, and the reflection I speak of is Charlie Manson's. Was there any limit to what you would do for him? No. I was laying the foundation for the very heart of my case against Manson, that Susan and the others would do anything for him, up to and including murder at his command. What was it about Charlie that caused you girls to be in love with him and do what he wanted you to do? Charlie is the only man I have ever met on the face of this earth that is a complete man. He will not take back talk from a woman. He will not let a woman talk to him into doing anything. He is a man. Charlie had given her the name Sadie Mae Glutz because in order for me to be completely free in my mind, I had to be able to be completely forget the past. The easiest way to do this, to change identity, is by doing so with a name. According to Susan, Charlie himself went under a variety of names, calling himself the devil, Satan, soul. Did Mr. Manson ever call himself Jesus? He personally never called himself Jesus. Did you ever call him Jesus? From my questioning the night before, I anticipated that Susan would be evasive about this, and she was. Alrighty, you have a great dinner. He represented a Jesus Christ-like person to me. Do you think Charlie is an evil person? In your standards of evil, looking at him through your eyes, I would say yes. Looking at him through my eyes, he is as good as he is evil. He's as evil as he is good. You could not judge the man. Although Susan didn't state that she believed Manson was Christ, the implication was there. Though I was at the time far from understanding it myself, it was important that I give the jury some explanation, however partial, for Manson's control over his followers. Incredible as all this was to the predominantly upper middle class, upper middle aged grand jurors, it was nothing compared to what they would hear when they described those 2 nights of murder. I worked up to them gradually, having her describe Spawn Ranch and the life there, and asking her how they survived. People gave them things, Susan said. Also, they panhandled, and the supermarkets all over Los Angeles throw away perfectly good food every day. Fresh vegetables and some cartons of eggs, packages of cheese that are stamped to a certain date, but the food is still good, and us girls used to go out and do garbage runs. Giancarlo had told me of one such garbage run, when, to the astonishment of the supermarket employees, the girls had driven up in Dennis Wilson's Rolls Royce. They also stole credit cards, other things. Did Charlie ask you to steal? No, I took it upon myself. We got programmed to do things. Programmed by Charlie? By Charlie, but it's hard for me to explain it so that you can see the way I see. The words that would come from Charlie's mouth would not come from inside him. They would come from what I call the infinite. And sometimes at night they creepy crawled. Explain to these members of the jury what you mean by that. Moving in silence so that nobody sees us or hears us, wearing very dark clothing. Entering residence at night? Yes. They would pick a house at random anywhere in Los Angeles, slip in while the occupants were asleep, creep and crawl around the rooms, silently maybe moving things so that when the people awakened, they wouldn't be in the same places they had been when they went to bed. Everyone carried a knife. Susan said she did it because everybody else in the family was doing it and she wanted that experience. These creepy crawly expeditions were, I felt sure the jury would summarize, death rehearsals for murder. Most of the members were from middle class households. Wow. Did you call your group by any name, Susan? Among ourselves, we called ourselves the family. It was, Susan said, a family like no other family. I thought I heard a juror mutter, thank God. Susan, were you living at Spawn Ranch on the date of August the 8th, 1969? Yes. Susan, on that date, did Charlie Manson instruct you and some other members of the family to do anything? I never recall getting any actual instructions from Charlie, other than getting a change of clothing and a knife, and was told to do exactly what Tex told me to do. Did Charlie indicate to you the type of clothing you should take? He told me, wear dark clothes. Susan's ID photos of Watson, Kremmerkel, and Kasabian, as well as a photo of the old Ford in which the four of them left the ranch. Charlie waved to them as they drove off. Susan didn't notice the time, but it was night. There was a pair of wire cutters on the back seat, also a rope. She, Katie, and Linda each had a knife. Tex had a gun, and she believed a knife too. Not only were they en route, did Tex tell them, to quote Susan, that they were going to a house up on the hill that used to belong to Terry Melcher, and the only reason they were going to that house was because Tex knew the outline of the house. Did Tex tell you why you four were going to Terry Melcher's former residence? Matter-of-factly, with no emotion whatsoever, Susan replied, to get all their money and to kill whoever was there. It didn't make a difference who was there. You were told to kill them. Is that correct? Yes. They got lost on the way, however. Tex finally recognized the turnoff, and they drove to the top of the hill. Tex got out, climbed the telephone pole, and, using the wire cutters, severed the wires. LAPD still hadn't got back to me regarding the test cuts made by the pair found at Barker. When Tex returned to the car, they drove back down the hill, parked at the bottom, then, bringing along their extra clothing, walked back up. They didn't enter the grounds through the gate because we thought there might be an alarm system or electricity. To the right of the gate was a steep, bushy incline. The fence wasn't as high here. Susan threw over her clothing bundle, then went over herself. Her knife in her teeth, the others followed. They were stowing their clothing in the bushes when Susan saw the headlights of the car. It was coming up the driveway in the direction of the gate. Tex told us girls to lie down and be still and not make a sound. He went out of sight. I heard him say, halt. Susan also heard another voice, male, say, please don't hurt me. I won't say anything. And I heard a gunshot, and I heard another gunshot, and another one, and another one. 4 shots. Then Tex returned and told them to come on. When they got to the car, Tex reached inside and turned off the lights. Then they pushed the car away from the gate, back up the driveway. I showed Susan a photo of the Rambler. It looked similar to it, yes. I then showed her the police photograph of Steve Parent inside the vehicle. That is the thing I saw in the car. They were audible gasps from the jurors. When you say thing, you were referring to a human being? Yes, human being. The jurors had looked at the heart of Susan Atkins and seen ice. They went on down the driveway, past the garage, to the house. Using a scale diagram I had prepared, Susan indicated their approach to the dining room window. Tex opened the window, crawled inside, and the next thing I knew, he was at the front door. Did all of you girls enter at the same time? Only 2 of us entered. 1 stayed outside. Who stayed outside? Linda Kasabian. Susan and Katie joined Tex. There was a man lying on the couch. Susan ID'd a photo of Wojciech Fakowski. The man stretched his arms and woke up. I guess he thought some of his friends were coming from somewhere. He said, what time is it? Tex jumped in front of him and held a gun in his face and said, be quiet. Don't move or you're dead. Fakowski said something like, who are you and what are you doing here? What did Tex say to that, if anything? He said, I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business. Tex then told Susan to check for the other people. In the first bedroom, she saw a woman reading a book. Susan ID'd a photo of Abigail Folger. She looked at me and smiled, and I looked at her and smiled. She went on, a man and a woman were in the next bedroom. The man who was sitting on the edge of the bed and his back to Susan. The woman who was pregnant was lying on the bed. Susan ID'd photos of Jay Sebring and Sharon Tate. The pair were talking and neither saw her. Returning to the living room, she reported to Tex that there were 3 more people. Tex gave her the rope and told her to tie up the man on the couch. After she'd done this, Tex ordered her to get the others. Susan walked into Abigail Folger's bedroom, put a knife in front of her, and said, get up and go into the living room. Don't ask any questions, just do as I say. Katie, also armed with a knife, took charge of Folger while Susan got the other two. None offered any resistance. All had the same expression on their face, shock. On entering the living room, Sebring asked Tex, "What are you doing here?" Tex told him to shut up, then ordered the three to lie on their stomachs on the floor in front of the fireplace. "Can't you see she's pregnant?" Sebring said. "Let her sit down." When Sebring didn't follow Tex's orders, Tex shot him. "Did you see Tex shoot Jay Sebring?" "Yes." "With the gun that he had taken from Spawn Ranch?" "Yes." "What happened next?" Jay Sebring fell over in front of the fireplace and Sharon and Abigail screamed. Tex ordered them to be quiet. When he asked if they had had any money, Abigail said that she had some in her purse in the bedroom. Susan went with her to get it. Abigail handed her $72 and asked if she wanted her credit cards. Susan said she didn't. On the return to the living room, Tex told Susan to get a towel and retie Bukowski's hands. She did, she said, but couldn't get the knot very tight. Tex then took the rope and tied it first around Sebring's neck, then the necks of Abigail and Sharon. He threw the end of the rope over the beam in the ceiling and pulled on it, which made Sharon and Abigail stand up so they wouldn't be choked to death. Then, I forgot who said it, but one of the victims said, "What are you going to do with us?" And Tex said, "You're all going to die." And at that time, they began to plead for their lives. What is the next thing that happened? Then Tex ordered me to go over and kill Frykowski. As she raised her knife, Frykowski, who had managed to free his hands, jumped up and knocked me down, and I grabbed him as best as I could, and then it was a fight for my life as well as him fighting for his life. Somebody got a hold of my hair and pulled it very hard, and I was screaming for Tex to help me, or somebody to help me, and Frykowski, he was also screaming. Somehow he got behind me, and I had the knife in my right hand, and I was I don't know where, but I was swinging with the knife and remembering hitting something 4 or 5 times repeatedly behind me. I didn't see what it was I was stabbing, but did appear to be a human being. I never stabbed a human being before, but I just know it was going into something. Could it have been him? It could have been Frykowski. It could have been a chair. I don't know what it was. Susan had changed her story. In my interview with her and on the tape, she had admitted to stabbing Frykowski 3 or 4 times in the leg. Also, if the story she told Virginia Graham was true, she knew exactly how it felt to stab someone, i.e. Gary Hinman. Frykowski ran for the front door, yelling for his life, for somebody to come and help him. Tex got to him and hit him over the head several times, with, I believe, a gun butt. Tex later told her that he had broken the gun, hitting Frykowski, and that it wouldn't work anymore. Although Frykowski had been shot twice, Susan couldn't recall the shooting, leaving in doubt exactly when this occurred. Apparently, Tex had a knife ready, and as he began stabbing, as best he could, because Frykowski was still fighting, meanwhile, Abigail Folger had gotten loose from the rope and was in fight with Katie Patricia Carmichael. The foreman, we had a grand juror who would like to be excused just for a couple of minutes. A recess was taken. There was more than one pale face in the jury box. We resumed where Susan had left off. Someone was moaning, she said. Tex ran over to Sebring and bent down and viciously stabbed him in the back many times. Sharon Tate. I remember seeing her struggling with the rope. Tex ordered Susan to take care of her. Susan locked her arm around Sharon's neck, forcing her back onto the couch. She was begging for her life. I looked at her and said, "Woman, I have no mercy for you." And I knew that I was talking to myself, not to her. Did Sharon say anything about the baby at this point? She said, "Please let me go. All I want to do is have my baby." There was a lot of confusion going on. Tex went over to help Katie. I saw Tex stab Abigail Folger, and just before he stabbed, maybe an instant before he stabbed her, she looked at him and let her arms go and looked at all of us and said, "I give up. Take me." I asked Susan how many times Tex had stabbed Abigail. "Only once," Susan replied. She grabbed her middle section of her body and fell to the floor. Tex ran outside. Susan released her grip on Sharon but continued to guard her. When Tex returned, he told Susan, "Kill her." But according to the story Susan was now telling, I couldn't. Instead, in order to make a diversion so that Tex couldn't see that I couldn't kill her, I grabbed her hand and held her arms, and then I saw Tex stab her in the heart area around the chest. Sharon then fell from the couch to the floor. Susan only mentioned Tex stabbing Sharon Tate once. According to the autopsy report, she had been stabbed 16 times. According to Ronnie Howard, Susan told her, "I just kept stabbing her until she stopped screaming." The next thing she remembered, Susan now testified, was that she, Tex, and Katie were outside, and I saw Abigail Folger on the front lawn, bent over, falling onto the grass. I didn't see her go outside, and I saw Tex go over and stab her 3 or 4, I don't know how many times. Abigail Folger had 28 stab wounds. While he was doing that, Katie and I were looking for Linda because she wasn't around, and then Tex walked over to Frykowski and kicked him in the head. Frykowski was on the front lawn, away from the door. When Tex kicked him, the body didn't move very much. I believe it was dead at the time, which was not surprising since Wojciech had been shot twice, struck over the head 13 times with a blunt object, and stabbed 51 times. Then Tex told me to go back into the house and write something on the door in one of the victim's blood. He said, write something that will shock the world. I had previously been involved in something similar to this, Hinman, where I saw political piggy written on the wall, so that struck very heavily in my mind. Re-entering the house, she picked up the same towel she had used to tie Wojciech's hands and walked over to Sharon Tate. Then she heard sounds. What kind of sounds were they? Gurgling sounds like blood flowing onto the body of the heart. What did you do then? I picked up the towel and turned my head and touched her chest. At the same time, I saw she was pregnant, and I knew that there was a living being inside of that body. And I wanted to, but I didn't have the courage to go ahead and take it. And then I got the towel with Sharon Tate's blood, walked over to the door, and with the towel, I wrote pig on the door. Susan then threw the towel back into the living room. She didn't look to see where it landed. I fell on Sebring's face, hence the hood referring to it in the press. Sadie, Tex, and Katie then picked up the bundles of spare clothing they hidden in the bushes. They left by the gate, Tex pushing the button, and hurried down the hill. When we got to the car, Linda Kasabian started the car, and Tex ran up to her and said, "What do you think you're doing? Get over in the passenger side. Don't do anything until I tell you to do it." Then we drove. They changed clothing in the car, all except Linda, who, not having been in the house, had no blood on her. As they were driving away, Susan realized she had lost her knife, but Tex was against going back. They drove somewhere along Benedict Canyon, Mulholland Drive, I don't know which street, until we came to what looked like an embankment going down the cliff with a mountain on one side and a cliff on the other. They pulled off and stopped, and Linda threw all the bloody clothes over the side of the hill. The weapons and knives and gun were tossed out at 3 or 4 different places. I don't remember how many. Susan then described, as she had to Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard, how after they pulled off onto a side street and used a garden hose to wash off the blood, a man and a woman rushed out of the house and threatened to report them to the police. And Tex looked at him and said, "Gee, I'm sorry. I didn't think you were home. We were just walking around and wanted a drink of water. We didn't mean to wake you up or disturb you." The man looked down at the street and said, "Is that your car?" And Tex said, "No, I told you we were just walking." The man said, "I know that is your car. You better get in it and get going." They got in the car, and the man, apparently having decided to detain them, reached in to get the keys. Tex quickly started the car, however, and drove fast. After stopping at a service station on Sunset Boulevard, where they took turns going to the bathroom to check for any other blood spots, they drove back to Spawn Ranch. Arriving there, Susan guessed about 2 a.m. When they pulled up in front of the boardwalk of the old movie set, Charles Manson was waiting for them. He walked over to the car, leaned inside, and asked, "What are you doing home so early?" According to Susan, Tex told Manson basically just what we had done. That it all happened perfectly. There was a lot of, it happened very fast, a lot of panic, and he describing it, boy, it sure was Helter Skelter. While at the service station, Susan had noticed blood on the door handles and steering wheel. She now went into the ranch kitchen and got a rag and a sponge and wiped it off. How was Charles Manson acting when you arrived back at Spawn Ranch? Charles Manson changes from second to second. He can be anybody he wants to be. He can put on any face he wants to put on at any given moment. Patricia was very silent. Tex was nervous, like he had just been through a traumatic experience. How did you feel about this and what you had just done? I almost passed out. I felt as though I had killed myself. I felt dead. I feel dead now. After she finished cleaning the car, Susan and the others had gone to bed. She thought she had made love to someone, maybe Clem, but then again, maybe she had imagined it. The noon recess was called. Throughout her testimony, Susan had referred to the victims by name. After the recess, I established that she hadn't known their names that night, nor had she ever seen any of them before. When I first saw them, my reaction was, wow, they sure are beautiful people. Susan first learned their identities the day after the murders while watching the news on TV in the trailer next to George Spawn's house. Tex, Katie, and Clem were also there, and maybe Linda, though Susan wasn't sure. As you were watching the television news coverage, did anyone say anything? Someone, Susan thought the words came from her own mouth, but she wasn't positive, said earlier, "The soul sure did pick a Lulu," or "The soul sure did a good job." She did remember saying that what happened had served its purpose, which was, I asked, to instill fear into the establishment. I asked Susan if any other members of the family knew they had committed the Tate murders. The family was so much together that nothing ever had to be said. We all just knew what each other would do or had done. We came now to the second night, the evening of August 9th and the early morning hours of August 10th. The evening, Manson again told Susan to get an extra set of clothing. I looked at him and I knew what he wanted me to do, and I gave a sort of sigh and went and did what he asked me to do. Did he say what you were going to go out and do that night? I asked. He said we were going to go out and do the same thing we did last night, only 2 different houses. It was the same card and the same cast: Susan, Katie, Linda, and Tex, with 3 additions: Charlie, Clem, and Leslie. Susan didn't notice any knives, only a gun, which Charlie had. They stopped in front of a house, somewhere in Pasadena, I believe. Charlie got out and the others drove around the block and then came back and picked him up. He said he saw pictures of children through the window and he didn't want to do that house. In the future, however, Manson explained, they might have to kill the children also. They stopped in front of another house, but saw some people nearby, so remained in the car, and after a few minutes drove off. At some point, Susan fell asleep and said when she awakened, they were in a familiar neighborhood, near a house where, about a year before, she, Charlie, and about 15 others had gone to an LSD party. The house had been occupied by Harold. She couldn't recall his last name. Charlie got out, only he didn't walk up the driveway of this particular house, but the one next door. Susan went back to sleep. She woke up when Charlie returned. He said, "Text Katie, Leslie, go into the house. I have the people tied up. They are very calm." He said something to the effect that last night Tex let people know they were going to be killed, which caused panic, and Charlie said that he reassured the people with smiles in a very quiet manner that they were not to be harmed. And so Tex, Leslie, and Katie got out of the car. Susan ID'd photographs of Tex, Leslie, and Katie, also of the La Bianca residence, the long driveway, and the house next door. I asked Susan what else Charlie did to the trio. She replied that she thought maybe my imagination that tells me this, that Charlie instructed them to go in and kill them. She did recall him saying that they were to paint a picture more gruesome than anybody had ever seen. He also told them that after they were done, they were to hitchhike back to the ranch. When Charlie returned to the car, he had a woman's wallet with him. Then he drove around in a predominantly colored area. What happened next? Susan said they stopped at a gas station. Then Charlie gave Linda Kasabian the woman's wallet and told her to put it in the bathroom in the gas station and leave it there, hoping that somebody would find it and use the credit cards and thus be identified with the murder. I wondered about that wallet. To date, none of Rosemary LaBianca's credit cards have been used. After leaving the station, Susan said she went back to sleep. It was like I was drugged, though. I was not on drugs at the time. When she woke up, they were back at the ranch. At this time, we were unaware that Susan Atkins had made some significant omissions in her grand jury testimony, including 3 other attempts at murder that night. Had we known of them, we probably would have asked for an indictment of Clem. And as it was, however, we all had against him was Susan's statement that he had been in the car, and we still had a slim hope that his brother, whom we'd contacted at the Highway Patrol Academy, might persuade him to cooperate with us. Susan had not entered the La Bianca residence. However, the next morning, Katie told her what had happened inside. She told me that when she got to the house, they took the woman in the bedroom and put her on the bed and left Tex in the living room with the man. And then Katie said the woman heard her husband being killed and started to scream, "What are you doing to my husband?" And Katie said that she then proceeded to stop the woman. Did she say what Leslie was doing while Leslie was helping Katie hold the woman down because the woman was fighting all the way up until she died? Later, Katie told Susan that the last words the woman spoke, "What are you doing to my husband?" would be the thought she would carry into her infinity. Afterwards, Katie told Susan they wrote "Death to all pigs" on the refrigerator door or on the front door, and I think she said they wrote "Helter Skelter" and "Arise." Then Katie walked into the living room from the kitchen with a fork in her hand, and she looked at the man's stomach, and she had the fork in her hand, and she put the fork in the man's stomach and watched it wobble back and forth. She said she was fascinated by it. Susan also said that it was Katie, I believe, who carved the word "war" on the man's stomach. The 3 then took a shower, and since they were hungry, they went to the kitchen and fixed themselves something to eat. Oh, all right. You take care, Dana. According to Susan, Katie also told her that they presumed the couple had children and that they would probably find their bodies when they came for Sunday dinner later that day. After leaving the residence, they dumped the old clothing in a garbage can a few blocks, maybe a mile away from the house. Then they hitchhiked back to Spawn Ranch, arriving about dawn. I had only a few more questions for Susan Atkins. Susan, did Charlie oftentimes use the word pig or pigs? Yes. How about Helter Skelter? Yes. Did he use the word pigs and Helter Skelter very, very frequently? Well, Charlie talks a lot, and some of the songs he wrote, Helter Skelter was in them, and he talked about the Helter Skelter. We all talked about Helter Skelter. You say we. Are you speaking of the family? Yes. What did the word pig or pigs mean to you and your family? Pig was a word used to describe the establishment, but you must understand that all the words had no meanings to us, and that Helter Skelter was explained to me. By whom? Charlie. I don't even like to say Charlie. I like to say the words came from his mouth, that Helter Skelter was to be the last war on the face of the earth. It would be all the wars that have ever been fought, built one on top of the other, something that no man could conceive of his imagination. You can't conceive of what it would be like to see every man judge himself and then take it out on every other man all over the face of the earth. After a few more questions, brought Susan Atkins' testimony to an end. As she nonchalantly stepped down from the witness stand, the jurors stared at her in disbelief. Not once had she shown a trace of remorse, sorrow, or guilt. There were only 4 more witnesses that day. After Susan Atkins was taken from the room, Wilfred Parent was brought in to identify her son in a high school prom picture. After identifying photos of the other Tate victims, Winifred Chapman testified that she had washed the front door of the Tate residence shortly before noon on Friday, August 8th. This was important since it meant that in order to leave a print, Charles Tex Watson had to have been on the premises sometime after Mrs. Chapman left at 4 that afternoon. Aaron questioned Terry Melcher. He described meeting Manson, told of how Manson had been along with Dennis. Dennis Wilson drove him home to 10050 Cielo Drive one night and described very briefly his 2 visits to Spawn Ranch. The first to audition Manson, the second to introduce him to Michael Deasy, who had a mobile recording unit and who felt might be more interested in recording Manson than he was. Manson gave Deasy some LSD. He had such a frightened trip that he wanted nothing more to do with Manson or his family. According to various family members, Melcher had made numerous promises to Manson and hadn't come through on them. Melcher denied this. The first time he went to Spawn, he had given Manson $50, all the money he had in his pocket, because I felt sorry for these people. But it was for food, not in advance on a recording contract, and he'd made no promises. As for Manson's talent, he wasn't impressed enough to allow the time necessary to prepare and record him. I wanted to interview Melcher in depth. I had a feeling that he was withholding something, but like most of the other grand jury witnesses, he was here for a very limited purpose, and any real digging would have to wait. Los Angeles coroner Thomas Noguchi testified to the autopsy findings on the 5 Tate victims. When he had concluded, the session was adjourned until Monday. That the proceedings were secret encouraged speculation, which in some cases appeared not as conjecture but fact. The headline on the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner that afternoon read, "Tate killers wild on LSD, grand jurors told." It wasn't true. Susan Atkins had stated the very opposite, that the killers were not on drugs either night. But the myth was born and it persisted, perhaps because it was the easiest explanation for what had happened. Though, as I'd soon learned, drugs were one of several methods Manson used to obtain control over his followers. They had no part in these crimes for a very simple reason. On these 2 nights of savage slaughter, Charles Manson wanted his assassins in complete control of their feelings. The reality and its implications were far more frightening than the myth. I have definitely got to use the phone booth. I'll be right back.
So how's everyone doing? Hey, Teresa.
And I'm gonna grab a drink. I feel queasy just reading that. Ugh. There's still a whole bunch more, but I've been reading for over an hour.
That's a hard spot to read
Yeah.
for the content.
Can read, I guess, a little tiny bit more, and then let me drink some of this. Some of it it kind of catches me off guard. Like I'll be reading it, and then I just start feeling sick, and I'm shaking like crazy. So I'm just gonna have some of my Coke Zero here, because you imagine it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of pause and go, what did I just read? What was that? You know, kind of it takes a second to almost hit you.
Yeah, like I'm shaking. Oh my God. Just like, it's just like the worst part of it is reading. All of them are horrible, all these murders, but the worst part for me was Sharon Tate, just knowing Oh, holy, I'm like really shaking. I don't walk. I didn't know it would affect me like this. I've never read it. I've been tempted to read more, like on my own, but I don't want to ruin it. I want to, just read it with you guys.
Save the reaction, yeah.
Well, that's why, like, sometimes I don't know if you guys notice, but I'll say my own thing in mid sentence, like "holy shit" or "oh my god" or "ew." Like I don't mean to. It's just literally I'm reacting because some of the stuff I didn't know. Actually, a lot of the stuff I did not know.
Oh, sorry. That'd be my dogs.
Yeah, I'll read just a little bit more. I'm gonna drink a little bit of this real quick. Yeah, right, Teresa. It's just I don't feel very well.
Did you see the message that I sent you?
No, I'll look right now.
Come here, Dakota. Dakota. Here you go, Willow.
Is it on Discord?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, puppy. Hi.
They're so cute.
Be nice to the neighbors.
I felt bad for my dog. He's whining because Leland left. He's gonna go spend the night at his dad's tonight. He's got a guitar lesson at 12 in the afternoon tomorrow, so it's like, oh, cool. Yeah, the no remorse part is there has to be something wrong with her head. Like there's got to be some sort of chemical imbalance or something. That's just not normal.
And I think she toned it down a little bit for her involvement with Sharon Tate for the grand jury.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like in this book because we heard her testimony, or not her testimony, but what she had said to like the police and stuff, and what she admitted to, also while being in jail. And now all of a sudden it's she's like trying to distance herself from the actual truth.
And I don't know if it's like she's trying to distance. I think she was very happy and very proud of what she did.
Yeah.
I think she's just trying to avoid getting into trouble. But I'm actually, one of the things that I'm glad about was her mouth. Basically, like she blurted out all this stuff and helped crack the case. But it was because she was bragging about it that my mom learned about the murders. She overheard her bragging about it over at Barker Ranch.
And she was bragging about it.
Oh, like she was like, they were planning to continue doing this over and over and over. And as you read, involve children.
Yes, that I didn't know. God. How long is this that you sent me? Is it the full?
That was, I couldn't find the actual scene individually. So I had to find the full movie and timestamp it.
Okay, so it's at 1:32. Okay.
At 32 and 15 or something. But it shows how, he's showing her a picture of Stephen K. saying, "Is this the man you saw?" And she's like, "Yes, that's the thing I saw in the car," type of. Just her reaction. Like the actress that does this, that plays her in this movie, did a really good job. I actually, I watched this movie with my mother, and so I got to have kind of an interesting reaction from it. I was over the phone with her. We weren't in the same state at the time, but she said that the actress that played Susan Atkins was probably the most accurate one that she'd ever seen.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, I'll read just this little chapter. There's just a few pages. And I think that's the end of the the questioning and stuff on the stand, I believe. All right, I'll just finish this up real quick. So this is December 6th to the 8th, 1969. On Saturday, Joe Granado went to the impound garage in Canoga Park to examine John Swartz's 1959 Ford, which had been held there since the August 16th Spawn raid. This was the car Susan Atkins said the killers had used on both nights. Granado got a positive benzene reaction on a spot in the upper right-hand corner of the glove compartment, indicating blood, but there wasn't enough to determine whether it was animal or human. When I finally got Joe's written report, I noticed the blood wasn't mentioned. Asked about this, Joe said the amount was so small he hadn't bothered to note it. I had Joe prepare a new report, this time including reference to the blood. Our case thus far was basically circumstantial, and in such a case, each speck of evidence counts. I just had a talk with Gary Fleshman. I don't know how to say his last name. Vince Aaron said he wants a deal for his client, Linda Kasabian. Complete immunity in exchange for her testimony at the trial. I told him maybe we could go along with her pleading to voluntary manslaughter, but we couldn't give her. Christ, Aaron, I interrupted. It's bad enough that we have to give Susan Atkins something. Look at it this way. Carmichael's in Alabama, Watson in Texas. For all we know, we may not be able to extradite them before the others go on trial. And Van Houten wasn't along on the night of the Tate murders. If we give deals to Atkins and Kasabian, who are we going to prosecute for the 5 Tate killings? Just Charlie? The people of the city won't tolerate that. They're shocked and outraged by these crimes. Drive through Bel Air sometime. The fear is still so real you can feel it. According to Fleshman, Linda was, is that, how do you say his last name? Fleeceman? Oh, it's like a CH on it. Fletchman, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, Linda was anxious to testify. He had urged her to fight extradition. She'd gone against his advice and came back to California because she wanted to tell the whole story. Okay, what can she testify to? According to Susan, Linda never entered either the Tate or La Bianca residences. As far as we know, she wasn't an eyewitness to any of the murders, with the possible exception of Stephen Parent. More important, as long as we have Susan, Linda's testimony would be valueless to us, since Susan and Linda are both accomplices. As you well know, the law is clear on this. The testimony of one accomplice can't be used to corroborate the testimony of another accomplice. What we really need, more than anything else, is corroboration. This was one of our biggest problems. In a sense, it didn't matter who ended up as our star witness. Without cooperation, our case would be lost as a matter of the law. We not only had to find cooperation against each of the defendants, that corroborating evidence had to be completely independent of the accomplice's testimony. Aaron had seen Linda briefly when she was booked by Sybil Brand. Booked into Sybil Brand. I'd never seen her. For all I knew, she was probably just as freaky as Sadie Mae Glutz. Now Susan bolts back to Manson, I told Aaron, and we're left without a major witness for the trial, as well we might be. Then we can talk about a deal for Linda. In fact, if that happens, Linda may be our only hope. When the grand jury reconvened on Monday, we moved quickly through the remaining testimony. Sergeant Michael McGann described what he had found at 10050 Cielo Drive on the morning of August 9, 1969. Sergeant Frank Escalante testified to having rolled Charles Watson's prints on April 23, 1969, when he was arrested on a drug charge. Jerome Bowen of SID described how he lifted the Leighton from the front door of the Tate residence, and Harold Dolan, also of SID, testified to having compared it to the Watson exemplar, finding 18 points of identity, 8 more than the LAPD requires for a positive identification. Sergeant William Lee testified regarding the pieces of gun strip and the .22 caliber bullets. Edward Lomax of High Standard matched the grips with his firm's .22 caliber Longhorn revolver and gave statistics indicating the gun itself, because of its low production figures, was rather unique. Greg Jacobson told of the touting Manson to Melcher. Granado testified regarding the rope and the blood on the gun grips and his discovery of the buck knife. It was for the most part highly technical testimony, and the appearance of Daniel DiCarlo provided a respite, as well as more than a little local color. Aaron asked Danny, "Did you have any particular reason for staying at the ranch? Lots of pretty girls up there. How did he get along with particular girls, for example, Katie?" "We talked, that's about it, but I never did nothing, you know. I never snatched her up or anything." "And is your motorcycle club the kind that goes into a town and scares everybody?" "No, that only happens in the movies." DiCarlo's appearance, however, was intended for more than comic relief. He testified that Manson, Watson, and others, including himself, target practiced with a .22 caliber buntline revolver at Spawn. He said that he had last seen the gun maybe a week and a half before the 16th of August, and never after that. The drawing of the revolver, which he had made for LAPD before he knew it was the Tate murder weapon, was introduced into evidence. DiCarlo also recalled how he and Charlie had bought the 3-strand nylon rope, which, being an ex-Coast Guardsman, he called mine, at the Jack Frost store in Santa Monica in June 1969, and shown the rope, found its yellow, and it was identical. After Susan Atkins, the outlaw motorcyclist looked almost like a model citizen. Deputy Medical Examiner David followed DiCarlo. So David had conducted the LaBianca autopsies. I'd have many problems with this witness. The grand jury provided only a sample. Aaron was to show David a photo of Lino LaBianca's hands, which were bound with a leather thong. DiCarlo had then to retake the stand and describe how Charlie always wore leather thongs around his neck. Sergeant Patcher was also to introduce the thongs he had found in Independence among Manson's personal effects. He was also prepared to testify that they were similar. Aaron showed Katsuma the photo, asking what material had been used to tie Lino LaBianca's hands. Electrical cord, he replied. I managed to suppress a groan. The electrical cord had been around the necks of the LaBianca's victims. Would he look at the photo a little more closely? It still looked like electrical cord to him. I finally had to show Katsuma, I think that's his name, his own autopsy notes where he'd written, the hands are tied together with a rather thin leather thong. Roxy, an officer with LAPD, had a lifelong friend of Lino's, identified photos of the LaBiancas, both Suzanne and Frank Struthers being still too shaken by the deaths to testify. Sergeant Danny Galindo told what he had found at 3301 Waverly Drive the night of August 10th to the 11th, 1969, and stated that a search of the residence revealed no trace of Rosemary LaBianca's wallet. Of the 5 girls brought down from Independence, Catherine Scher, a.k.a. Gypsy, refused to testify, and we had not called Leslie Van Houten since we were now aware that she was one of the LaBianca killers. The 3 remaining, Diane Lake, a.k.a. Snake, Nancy Pittman, a.k.a. Brenda, and Ruth Ann Morehouse, a.k.a. Ausich, all denied any knowledge of the murders. I had anticipated this. However, I had another reason for calling them. If they appeared as defense witnesses when they went to trial, any discrepancy between what they told the grand jury and the trial jury would give me a prior inconsistent statement with which to impeach their testimony. At 4:17 p.m., the Los Angeles County grand jury began their deliberations. Exactly 20 minutes later, they returned the following indictments. Leslie Van Houten, 2 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. Charles Manson, Charles Watson, Patricia Carmichael, Susan Atkins, and Linda Kasabian, 7 counts of murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. We got the indictments, and that was all we had. Okay, I'm done reading from this tonight. Let's see here. Yeah, you're right, Teresa. You there still, Artsy? Oh, okay, she phone both time for her. Okay, there's a video that I'm going to show as well that Artsy gave me. Brittany gave me one too, so I'm gonna have to show that one too. You have a food diary? I'm too lazy for that kind of thing. Plus, I just eat whatever I want. I do eat healthy though. Not all the time, but most of the time. You're back. Alrighty. Just trying to keep your weight down. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, I'm just going to show the video that you sent me. Wait.
The trigger warning for this, though, it shows the testimony that she gives, and then it kind of reenacts the scenes.
Okay.
Including stabbings.
Oh boy. I'm just gonna mute myself because if I don't, we get echoes.
You're sharing Discord? There you go. I fixed it.
What was the timestamp again?
Hold on.
Where is it?
1:32:15. Yep.
Alrighty.
Yeah, very much trigger warning.
Miss Atkins, I have here a photograph of the Rambler driven by Stephen Parent that night. Is this the car you saw?
It looks similar to it, yes.
Is this the person you saw Tex Watson shoot and kill?
That is the thing I saw in the car.
When you say thing, you are referring to a human being?
Yes, human being.
After you helped Tex move the car, you approached the house?
Hey, what time is it? Be quiet. Don't move or you're dead. Who are you? What are you doing here? I'm the devil. And I'm here to do the devil's business. Check for anybody else.
It's Abigail Folger. She just waved at.
There's 3 more people.
I don't understand these. What do you want? Go get him.
Don't say a word. Get up and go into the living room. Go! Get up and go into the living room. Don't ask any questions. Just do what I say.
Go.
What are you doing here?
Shut up. Lay on your stomachs on the floor.
Can't you see that she's pregnant? Let her sit down.
Shut up. Who's got money?
I do. In my bedroom. Do you want the credit cards? No. What are you gonna do? You do it.
You're all gonna die.
He crawled outside. He won't die.
Kill her.
Please don't kill me. Look, bitch, I have no mercy for you. Please let me live so I can have
I give up. You take me. I'm already dead.
Write something.
Take the baby. Cut the baby out. Save the baby. I can't.
For the record, Stephen Parent was shot 4 times. Jay Sebring was shot once and stabbed 7 times. Wojciech Frykowski was shot twice, struck over the head with a blunt object 13 times, and stabbed 51 times. Abigail Folger was stabbed 28 times. Sharon Tate was stabbed 16 times.
Stone Cold. Yeah, Nick, if you want to, you can pause it now.
Jesus.
It actually, it will show, that same movie will show more of from Linda Kasabian's point of view too. But yeah, it's pretty accurate with what you just read in the book, and the little details from like kicking.
Very, very, very accurate. Because remember I was saying I watched Wolves at the Door and then I watched The Haunting of Sharon Tate. And I think those 2 movies are great. Now, this is they are accurate, but this is like spot on, like right, everything from what I read from the book. And that's a first for me, because normally the books are way better, you know what I mean? But there's literally sayings from the book that's actually in this movie. Wow.
Yeah.
I know, there was.
Wave to kicking to the pleading to the take me, I'm already gone, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so the Brittany's saying, so yeah, Sharon, I didn't know, I thought that Sharon had, I didn't realize that Susan had went back and rolled the door. I mean, I think I did, but I didn't realize, it was more, I didn't realize that Sharon was still alive, asking for the baby. Like, I know that part, but I don't know, it seems new, I guess.
I think she was pleading more at the beginning of it, but she just mentioned the gurgling sounds when she went back.
Yeah. So she was. So when she went back in, was Sharon actually alive?
She probably was a little bit. Yeah. She was still in the process.
Oh my God.
Of passing.
Wow. Yeah, it was bad, Teresa. Trying to think, how far am I in the book getting to your mom? Because there's a better, like, bigger part for her, right?
A little bit, yeah. I'll have to find the page.
Yeah, I'm just gonna skim through a little bit. If you want to, you can show whatever you have on your end of your mom, like photos and whatnot. Whatever you or you want to wait. It's up to you.
I'll probably have to wait. I don't have like anything like prepared.
Anything
I'd want to scan them in.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had heard that either. Support your troops. And they called them things. Like when she called it a thing, that wow. And that the actress that plays her, I've seen her in a few movies before. She's a pretty good actress. Almost makes you hate her. Yeah. She was in what is that vampire movie? Queen of the Damned. She was one of the vampires near the end. She turned into one. That's where I remember her from. Yeah. That smug look and that, you know what I mean? That when she says thing and it just makes you hate the character. That's how you know they're really good actresses and actors, right? But it's like, wow.
She's just sitting there just so unaffected.
Yes. You'd hear the courtroom. They're just like, wow. Do you guys have any questions or anything for Artsy?
They might not yet. I just told them.
Huh?
They might not yet. I just told my mom. So, yeah, I'll talk more about my mom a little, probably after, like towards the end of the book or at the end of the book. I'll answer a little bit of questions like here and there, but I would kind of like to save more of it like through the end.
Yeah.
If you guys end up Googling my mother, just please know that you're going to see a lot of stuff that isn't true. Like a lot. So much that isn't. That was one of the hard things in dealing with this, is seeing like the ridicule and just the crap that people would say online as a teenager.
Yeah.
So when you are looking at a website, just please consider the source. If they are in support of any of the killers being released, you're going to see a lot of opinions that are absolute crap.
Yeah, I can imagine. I never did research or anything. I'm just doing this completely with you. Like I haven't looked, nothing.
And one thing that, my mom did do a good job of is she wanted to go and live in anonymity. And so you have these websites that are like 100% true story of Barbara Hoyt. Yes. And then like the first line, she was born in Seattle, or she was born in Hoyt. And I was like, oh, you can't even get the first line right. So
yeah. And that's awful, especially when it's not right and you know it's a lie and you got to read it. Yeah. Yeah. Her mom is, well, here, you explain it.
Barbara Hoyt. Hoyt.
There's a mugshot of her mother in the book as well.
Yeah, actually.
But it was because she stole a pack of cigarettes, wasn't it?
Oh, she wouldn't steal a pack. She stole the whole carton.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. She stole a whole carton. We'll have to show them that.
Turn my I don't know which camera is going to be turned on here if I turn my camera on. It's either going to be a book or it's going to be my palette. It's my palette. Okay. how do I change this? Settings.
I spelled that right, I think. Barbara Hoyt. I just put that in the chat.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's her mom's name.
Okay, so this is either going to be a palette or a book again. There's the book. Okay. So let me find her real quick.
Oops, shit. Sorry. There we go.
If you do look in this book, and it's really hard to see, I will scan this in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I don't smoke. There's a group, like you can barely see like the back of her head and things that I'll show, but let me at least, where are you at? There she is.
Yeah, that same mugshot I got.
Yeah.
You're smiling.
It's like, yep, I still cigarettes. That is her.
Not a pack. I was wrong. It was a whole damn carton.
This
But
is
that
a
I'm so
smaller-
happy. That's all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is an old, I have a few copies, but this is the one that was signed by Vincent Bugliosi to my mother.
The name's not familiar. No, I don't remember ever hearing that name, actually, Nancy, myself. But then again, I've never read the book. You know, there's so, you just know, I guess, the basic. I just know the basics, I guess, of, you know, the murders and stuff like that.
Yeah, my mom wasn't what I'd call a major player in that case. And thank God, because the names that you remember are pretty much, they were either a killer or a victim.
Yep.
So I am,
Exactly.
yeah. My mom was off on the side. So, you know, when we're online and we see like these online communities kind of arguing or whatever, and they're accusing each other of being in cults.
Yeah.
This is where my mind goes. Then I'm like, no.
Yeah, and you would know, right? I mean,
I was like, unless, you know, there's a theory about like end times, people drinking Kool-Aid, and people, you know, I was like, nope.
Exactly. Screaming Ether. She says, wow, Artsy, your mom escaped with her soul and her sanity. Thank goodness. Exactly.
And I will talk about more about how my mom found out where she was and how she escaped, because she almost didn't make it when she escaped. And that's one thing that the book just glosses over.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to escape something the same way she did, I don't think I would have made it, actually.
Yeah, that's what I can't wait to hear you talk about all that stuff. As we near the end of this book, that'll be great. Because I love, yeah, like from the stuff you told me, I mean, wow.
So at this point in time, my mom has escaped from the family. You know, there's a little part where she came forward, and she is sleeping with a knife under her pillow with death threats constantly, and they know where she lived. So
yeah,
this is what my mom was doing. She was 17.
Oh my God, just a baby. I would, yeah, I'd be sleeping with a knife too, you know. Wow. Nancy says, do you think it could be divine intervention?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's why I get so pissed off at KJ as well. Not meaning to bring her up, but I'm going to, because she labels everything a cult. And it pisses me off because now the Manson family, that was a goddamn cult. There may not have been the Kool-Aid, but it might as well be. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Yeah, she labels everything and anything a cult. People against her are in a cult. She's saying, you know, anybody who's against her, says anything that speaks on her, that they're in a cult. You can't do that. You can't. It's pissing me off.
Yes,
like,
she
there's
would.
the cult of Steve. There's the cult of this.
You're your mama's daughter. Well, I think anytime anybody survives, it's divine intervention. If there's ever a situation where somebody barely makes out with their life.
Yeah. And she, well, literally escaped with the skin on her teeth type thing, right? Like it was just even knowing what you know, being her, my God. Like, wow. Like she wasn't involved, but she was in a sense that she had to, she was there. She wasn't a part of the awfulness, but she didn't know any better from my understanding. She didn't even know until after, correct?
Correct. So it was with the Manson family, it's there were a lot of I kind of describe it as an onion. There were very core members.
Yeah.
And those were the ones who were sent to do killings. There were, and I mean, my mom was taught like Helter Skelter. She was taught, divide it. But living at the movie ranch, it was fun.
Yeah.
In a very weird way, I know to describe, especially after what we just watched. But you're a teenager, you don't have rules, you don't have to worry about the date or the time, and they're playing on a movie ranch. They're having fun. They're getting drunk. They're
exactly. They're doing drugs. They're getting drunk. They're having a blast. I mean, I think that anyone would love that. Absolutely.
And they're on a movie set. And she's like, they would play like cowboys and Indians and guns and robbers. Like they would actually act out some of that stuff. And then she's like, the next day I knew they were, playing killers and she didn't realize that it wasn't they weren't just
playing.
Yeah,
exactly. I think anybody who was that young and that naive were like, hey, this is awesome. No parents. We do whatever the hell we want. And they did. It just so happened that some people knew more than others, and that's some people that went into murdering others.
Yeah, and it's they weren't killers until they were. So when my mom joined, it's very easy to kind of look back and kind of do like a judge in hindsight type deal. Yeah. But when my mom met them, they're just hippies out at a ranch.
Yeah. Hey, Autistic Jill. Yeah, exactly. Well, she was the one that had to gather the clothing, right? But it was
yeah, that you're talking about the night of the murders. Yes.
Yeah,
they were expecting a police raid, and my mom being one of the few there, not the only one, but some of the few that were under 18 were kept way in the back.
Yeah,
they didn't want to get in trouble for having minors there. And Susan Atkins had called her to bring 3 sets of dark clothes, bring that up to the front. Someone said, okay, she did. She got there. Manson yelled at her, what are you doing now? Over here, I told you to be back there. And she said, they called for some clothes. He goes, oh, well, they already left.
Wow. She had no clue. Not until everything was over.
No. And the next day when they were watching the news, she was in there watching the news with them. She said that was the one and only time they ever, paid attention to the outside world, getting rid of, calendars and clocks or whatever.
Yeah.
And we did hear that comment of, well, Tex or Charlie or somebody sure knows how to pick them. And she wasn't sure what they were talking about.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's gotta be scary.
Sitting right there with the killers.
Well, yeah, especially having no idea. If I was in her shoes, I would just imagine I'm giving them black clothes so they can go steal from somebody or something. Who knows, some minor thing. Not really minor, but minor compared to murder.
Yeah, compared to the yeah.
Yeah, compared to what the outcome was, absolutely. I mean, so be like, yeah, here's your clothes or whatever. I'm not involved, so I don't care. Do what you gotta do. But when you find out what it's actually for and what happened, Jesus. That's when it hits, I guess, reality. Do you guys have any questions or anything before we end? Somebody's been playing, it sounds like drums for the past like 3 hours. It's driving me insane. It's like, don't, 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 don't. I don't know where. I think it's that stupid neighbor from last night. Oh my God. I almost got hit by him today. Last night was fireworks, so that was real fun. I had to go water everything down to make sure nothing caught fire, idiot, in my own yard. And then today, he almost hit me and my son, just flooring down the road. And then all of a sudden the cops came. So I'm like, finally, is he getting in shit? Nope, they went to another house. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, it's just get in the house, Leland. Come on. Yeah, he's had whoever, I don't know where it's coming from. It's from his side, so. It can't be the same song over and over. Maybe it is. I don't know, but I'm irritated. Our biosystic show. Nancy says, do you think your mom was in survival mode?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Did your mom have good support from her parents and family after?
That is a complicated answer. From some, yes. From some, not so much.
Yeah.
I think I might not quite answer that one because I don't want to hurt family members of mine that are still alive.
Gotcha.
But my mom was one of 5 siblings, and she was right in the middle.
Yeah.
And it affected a lot of my mom's siblings as well. And I think my mom, being in more of a survival mode, didn't really kind of see how it would affect them. And so there was some conflict between a couple of, not with everybody, but.
Yeah, I guess there would be. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like somebody's doing a drum solo. Oh my God. This is 2 nights in a row I've had to deal with this jerk. Oh my God. Can you guys hear it at all? Well, I hear birds. There's doom-da-doom. Same thing for like the past 3 hours.
Start blaring some bagpipes or something. Really loud and annoying. But I mean, there were people that my mom did get support.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad.
But also my mom being young and having siblings even younger than her, or siblings, even older, they weren't that much. They were all young. So there was, I didn't expect, when I was told about this and kind of looking back at it now that I'm older, it kind of makes sense why there was that sibling kind of, clashes a bit over that, and how well their understanding of each other and how it would affect each of them would be, especially for teenagers.
Well, the kids would have been talked about, I'm assuming, too, once everything was out, right?
Yes.
Like in school. Yeah, that would be the hardest thing. Because I can just imagine siblings in school. I could just imagine what people said to their faces, let alone behind their back.
Right.
About their sister, right? Oh, it would have been awful. That was my stomach. Alrighty, if he gives himself a round of applause or a standing ovation, I'm gonna push him right the hell over. Like after this, I'm about to go over there and yell at him, tell him to shut the F up.
Which actor was that got?
There's not really chapters. There's just dates. Yeah.
There was an actor that did that with like a banjo, playing over and over and had the cops called. That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And they called and he was naked and drunk and playing the banjo. That's what your neighbor story is reminding me.
Well, like, who the fuck is playing this for 3 hours? It's like the same song, but I can only hear the drum part. So it's like a drum solo that's been going on for 3 hours. The same over and over and over. I heard it when I left to go to the store. I heard it on my way back. Like, I don't understand. Don't do drugs. Seriously, because like,
good.
oh, is it gone? Oh, god damn it! Started again. I'm gonna kick this guy's ass in a minute. I'm telling you. Wow. Yeah, it sounds like he just started the song again. It stopped for like 2 seconds. I was like, oh my god. Oh, quiet again. Do I get a break? Oh my god, it stopped. Knock on wood. Because my bedroom is right beside the house. Oh my god, I spoke too soon. I swear he can hear me.
He can hear you talk?
No, but it almost seems like it because he keeps messing with me. It feels like. I know he can't, but off on now. The sound. Jesus. All right, I'm gonna go unless you guys have any other questions. I don't know. I'm hungry. I'm gonna make something to eat and try not to do anything to this neighbor of mine. Like go screaming. Wah.
Sweet dream. Oh, I keep forgetting you guys are on East Coast time. I'm like, sweet dreams. It's only 6.
Yeah, it's 9 here. Well, thank you for coming on.
No problem.
And I'm excited for reading this book. Right until the very end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go take his goddamn drumsticks in a minute, or whatever the hell he's playing. I'm gonna start banging on the windows and then run. Sure, he'll get the hint. Freaking guy. Unless he's playing it for his dogs. He's not there. I don't know. His dogs do nothing but bark whenever they're not there. I mean, all day. If they're gone for, like, I don't even know how they have a voice box, but that's what they'll do. They'll sit there and bark at the front window. They've got they've got the windows and the doors, everything blocked off with heavy blankets and stuff so that the dogs can't see, but they still bark.
Oh.
Yeah. They're, the one is very, does not like to be alone. I think the dog's got like really bad anxiety. It's not like to be alone. So she knows my voice. So I'll go over there and I'll talk to her a little bit and then, she'll stop. But as soon as I leave, she starts crying. It is sad.
Get like that a little bit. Like I've actually left like my YouTube videos playing.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. So, if that's it, then okay, I'm going to have to deal with it. It is for the dogs.
And then I have a dog that I talk to, and my coworkers make fun of me because I'm literally on my phone. I go, "Who's a good puppy?"
Yeah. Well, actually, they're not barking. When I left today, they weren't barking. So I wonder because I don't think they're home. And usually when they're not home, the dogs bark. I can hear it through my house, like vaguely, but I can hear it. They're always barking, but I haven't heard them at all bark. So I'm wondering, maybe that helps. If so, I don't know. I can handle it. I'd rather listen to that than the poor dogs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Everyone have a good night. I am going to make some beat real quick and go finish watching Hannibal, the series.
Oh, gosh.
It's a good show.
I'm going to go paint something.
Yeah, I'm going to eat before. Hannibal always makes me hungry because he's always cooking. Even though
he's cooking humans and that.
I was gonna say a lot of it's human, it still looks good. Okay. So it's always like, oh my god, I feel like eating that. I want to eat that. I don't know. I'm hungry. I didn't really eat much today, so I'm gonna do that. Yeah, I do talk to the doggies. But they're not barking today, so that's actually probably a good idea, even though it's annoying the hell out of me. Whatever works. All right, you guys have a great night, and I'll be back Wednesday and Thursday. Have a good night, Artsy.
Good one.
Bye.